27th, 2021 Greater Clark County School Board meeting to order. Ms. Markowski, please note that all sworn-in board members are present and accounted for. If you'll please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item we need to approve tonight will be the approval of the agenda. And board, I would move that we approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Hutchinson. Does anyone have any comments regarding that? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. We're going to move on down to goals, strategies, and student achievements. And our first person to speak tonight will be our Chief Operations Officer, Dr. Shank. Good to see you.
Good evening, board. We are going to try and be as concise as possible because I know we all have things looming here before the start of the school day tomorrow. So let's talk a little bit about what we're doing here. Projects update, I wanted to just kind of share a few things with you. The pool at Charlestown Middle School, as you're aware, here about 2 months ago, we had a pool issue. We had a seam that was under repair, needed more repair. So that is now complete. We've released that retainage on that project. And we're happy to say that the pool is certainly a nice added feature to Charlestown and the entire community there. The tennis courts, you can see that we've already cleared our punch list. There were a couple of changes on the tennis courts at Charlestown High School that we realized there were a few change orders with paint colors that were selected that we really wanted to try and match the existing building. So the final paint color, I think, was referred to as burnt bagel. So we went with that. People invent those colors. Burnt bagel, I think, where we rested our heads and our laurels. So that's where we're at there with that court. If you've seen it, we actually painted the courts blue and gray. They look really, really nice. And the fencing and everything is done there as well. You know, what we're going to do before, and I did put it on the slide, but I'll let you all know, with the 2 football fields, Charlestown and Jeffersonville, we'll do a final punch list. We'll have those folks there before our very first game. They'll be there at the first game as well, just to make sure and run through everything with our athletic directors and our head coaches to make sure that everything is fine for that kickoff of the season. We've got a lot of ESG work that's ongoing. We're kind of at the mercy of when they can try to schedule some of this work. Just as of last week and even on Saturday and Sunday, they brought in 2 crews to do panel upgrades. Most of the lighting, 99% of the lighting upgrades have been completed. All of the water conservation has been completed. We have a little bit of the building envelope where they're going to caulk windows. A good example is at New Washington High School. Those windows are pretty old, so they're going to be sealing those up permanently and making, but we've also notified the staff that once those windows are sealed up, it's then Mr. Gunther's job and his team's job to make sure that the HVAC and the upgrades that we're doing are going to help with that optimal learning environment. So those are the things we're still doing with ESG. On the week of August 10th, we're going to begin doing a punch list of the water conservation, the low flow flushing and sinks. That's all completed. The panels and the power supplies, they worked again Saturday and Sunday all day, or all this weekend, just to try and not influence the staff being in the building. So we're trying to finish up that project. ESG is about 85 to 90% done with everything that they had in our energy savings contract. Transportation Service Center, we're about 75% complete. Now, when I say a move-in date for Labor Day, that is the main building, the new building, the offices. I was there this morning actually, and yesterday as well. 68 degrees. The HVAC is up and working. Oh, did I hit weather? Siri heard me say something about the weather. 68 degrees. Is holding. So the HVAC is up and going. They put tile in the bathrooms. We're wanting and working on I guess not much of the structural stuff is left to be done. The drop-in ceiling has been placed. So we anticipate the Labor Day move-in will happen. What I have to make sure of is that we're 100% ready to go with our IT support and our bus radios, our repeater. All of that will have to be up and going. Right now, Feder has been our home for a good while. We're going to start the school year with operations out of Feder, and we have a local small trailer at Jeff High. That's where we're parking all of our Jeffersonville buses. And just as a reminder, most of our buses, other than special ed, most of our buses in Charlestown and New Wash are Rambley contract. Two-tier system is ready for our transportation. Look at that top bullet, over 1,800 change requests. So what that is when someone moves, or grandma's now going to watch the kids after school, or I'm a 5th grader and now I go into the 6th grade, that changes because 5th grade is an elementary route, and now the 6th grade would be what is now our two-tier system. It would be a middle high school route. Always we have issues and trouble with those, parents not really understanding that. We try to get the word out, and they eventually do start to figure that out, and those requests come in. We also have 8th graders that become freshmen. That's another bus historically, and remember, we redid all of our routes this summer. Every one of our Jeffersonville routes, and really every one of our Charlestown and New Wash routes, when we bid those out, were redone. So there's been a lot of work that's been put into that. 1,800 change orders in county. Each change request takes us about 3 minutes to complete, if you're good at it. And you go into the Traversa system, and once that change is done, and you've been assigned the new bus, if you have a 6th grader, or if you have a kindergartner, if you have a 1st grader, and they're now going to go to grade, when that happens, and you've downloaded that Ride 360 app, it's pretty quick. We did it the other day, and it was about a 20-second delay as far as before and then after. So that's one of the things we continue to push out through social media. We only have 2 incoming phone lines into transportation, so you can imagine with the number of phone calls. This is just online requests. So you can't think about all of the phone calls we're going and getting at this time of the year as well. So we just encourage people to be patient. If we're getting to it, my staff will not leave today until we have everybody ready. And I've got overflow buses both AM and PM all this week. So if there are students, we get a call, or another driver sees students sitting at a corner or standing at a bus stop, and we're going to dispatch that overflow bus to go pick them up. And then, obviously we've met with our contractors and they've met. We've been working transportation tables at back to school events. So we feel pretty confident that we're going to be ready for tomorrow morning. It's like it or not, the kids are going to be there. And we've got to get them to school. That will be our intent. In the afternoon, all of our staff, all of our principals, they do a really good job of trying to tag the students' backpacks, make sure the teachers are aware. We send out a daily updated listing by school, and then it's alphabetized so every single kid can be very quickly located and found, has their AM stop in time and location, and has their PM drop-off time and location. So we make sure that we get those kids on the right buses in the afternoons. Now, it's going to be hot tomorrow. And once we're loaded, a good example, once we're loaded at Jeff High and we stack buses 2 by 2, we won't hold those buses for very long because it's hot on those buses. So we're going to get them moving so that the airflow and things can happen. Again, if there's 10 kids left on the curb because they didn't know what bus they rode, whether it be Jeff High or Charlestown High or River Valley Middle, we have those overflow buses. We'll make sure that we get them home, and then we'll make sure that we tag those kids with a special phone call home to make sure mom, dad, student knows for the following day. So those numbers go much, much smaller. But last year, I think we had about 22 kids at Jeff High that first afternoon that were just kind of throwing their hands up. I don't know what bus I'm supposed to ride. They didn't come to the lunch table that we provide a staff member. Parents may not have taken the opportunity to do the change request or find out exactly what bus. But we work through those, and that's again just something that we're going to continue to do to start the school year. So far, as we talked about in our cost-saving budget reduction plan with the board, we've realized about $300,000 in savings. And that is through just looking and maximizing efficiencies, maximizing special education routes. We told the board when we looked at the cost-saving reduction plan that going from a 3-tier to a 2-tier would allow us to see some efficiencies that hadn't been realized. And we also knew that there's always some of my transportation staff that just don't come back. And we unfortunately oftentimes don't know about that until we start getting them back physically, for professional development days. So we've lost a couple of drivers to retirement and we're just moving on through attrition. But we do have 4 new drivers that came in over the summer, so they are status unassigned drivers, but they will be very quickly taking over some of those routes and those positions. Perfection group updates. I'm going to let Mr. Gunther, Chris Gunther's here with us from Perfection. I'm going to let him talk about some of these slides and go into what they've been doing ever since July 1 officially. But remember, they started onboarding. We started using them really around the 1st of April, late March. Right, Chris?
Well, thank you, Chad, and thank you all. As far as the updates, the work orders that we've now started, as he just said, our work orders through the contract started on July 1. And we put the process into place on the work order system on July 15. So tracking the work orders started on July 15. And the reason why we waited 15 days is that's when the admin council meeting was and all the principals were in one room together. So that allowed us to officially roll it out. And so right now we're getting about 100 work orders a day, and that is everything from moving to light switches, so HVAC. So that includes all layers of what our contract states, from mechanical to custodial and general maintenance. The majority of them, I would say, would be right now would be moving. We're getting a lot of them at Bridgepoint and Gordon Porter, moving those out, moving other buildings back in. And then also, with the heat now, I know this week it's going to be 97 on Thursday. We're looking at preparing all the schedules for all the schools, looking at those. But we are seeing a lot of progress from when we started to now. So the HVAC issues, we've had multiple crews that are continued to be dispatched. We have 24 hours now. So some of the stuff that we can't get to during the day, we are being dispatched to handle at night. So we have on-call people 24/7. So we're seeing issues now that we've actually, or not we haven't seen, but the schools have seen for several years now that are actually beginning to be resolved just through some tweaks or some things that we've been able to actually replace. One of the things that you'll see here on the next slide is the part of the ESSER money. We're looking that there's an $8 million out for. Oh, what's this one? Okay, thank you. So that $8 million plan using the ESSER money, it'll on the agenda tonight, and we'll talk about that. That is all, HVAC. Oh, yes, ma'am. Uh-oh. And yeah, so we are looking to have a lot of the major issues that we know of and are aware of in the school district handled by that first one. Now, as Mark stated several times, there's $35 million plus of HVAC needs and upgrades in the district. But that $8 million is going to hit the major targets and get a lot of those repair issues, those major calls, so we're going to see a lot more consistency in the schools. And actually, if you go back up to the slide before, one of the things that we have seen that we've been hearing positive news on is our turn times as far as issues and things getting fixed and repaired. So we have had positive feedback from teachers, principals. There are some outstandings. There's, issues with averaging 100 per day. We can't get through everything in a single day. Some are, getting to, are having to be pushed off to the next day. But with the communication is what they've been very pleased with. We'll let them know when we can do something. And so we're seeing a lot of progress and a lot of learning. This first day after 30 days in, I think we'll have experienced hopefully just about every sort of situation that we need to be involved with so we can understand how to react, and we're making those adjustments. So we're making some big headways. And all of that leads down to that what we've seen already just from simply changing filters, huge energy savings in that aspect alone. And then some of these repairs are leading to more efficiency on the HVAC side, which is also leading to even more savings. Chip.
Thanks, Chris. One of the things, and this is pretty small, but one of the things Mr. Lawford wanted me to kind of talk about is, and I know many of you on the board, when you call, I try to get back with you, I try to answer your phone call, I try to answer your text and I appreciate that. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to do that. You can always, you've all got my cell phone, you can call me day or night. I get calls day and night. I handle all of the ACE monitoring. We have alarms in all of our buildings, we have motion sensors, we have cameras. So there's often times when I'll get those calls and we choose to dispatch if it's after a certain period of time or if it just doesn't seem like something is right. This time of year, obviously, we've got staff members in the building early and staff members in the buildings late. But oftentimes we'll go ahead and dispatch. And I know one of our SROs, Kevin Anderson, and then those in JPD, Jefferson Police Department, and working for the county or the city of Charlestown, sometimes I'm sure they're thinking, geez, we've got to go out and do another run. But I'd rather be safe than sorry. And we have seen a few things. We've had kids that have come in the building and we handle that accordingly. But those are the things that we do kind of on safety and security, but I'm also looking and working with our SROs and with Gary Green, our school safety district-wide safety specialist. We know that we've got ongoing things that we want to do and upgrade. I mentioned that in our safety presentation to the board a couple of months ago. Trying to get vendors and our construction projects, whether they be big or small, whether it be a large painting and a large project that's going on during the summer, or carpet cleaning that we conducted throughout the district. We had a lot of, like Mr. Gunther said, we had a lot of moves. Closing down essentially the court reporter building, not the program. The program came to Jeffersonville High School. A dedicated hallway was created. We added a storefront. We added all of the security and things that needed for access control. So that building and that hallway can truly be a separate entity within the walls of Jeffersonville High School. That took a pretty big undertaking, especially in a balanced calendar summer, with all the other things that we had going on. Finishing up our projects and knowing that we're getting ready to launch, we're starting to have those mobilization meetings. We're actually going to be doing core drilling tomorrow at our softball field at Jeff High, baseball and softball field at Charlestown for the upcoming Moats Group projects. We'll have that contract to you all. I think Mr. Walker, that's going to be on the August 10th meeting. And again, that's for that upcoming project. And then we've got Utica Elementary School core drilling that will go and coincide with the ARC contract for those classroom additions. So there's always things going and wheels turning. Transportation, this time of year, that dominates a lot of our time. 5 a.m. till 6 or 7 p.m. every night. My other staff members that are working there are putting in even more hours than that. They're there until upwards of 9, 10 o'clock this time. 8 hours, I talked to one of them, in the last 8 days, he worked 122 hours, trying to go through those requests and make sure that we get those emails answered. And he was also one that was building routes. And he's not alone. There's other staff members that are doing the same thing in transportation. It's difficult, but we're getting through it. Really, my job is to try and do it as effectively as possible while trying to maintain and maximize efficiencies. That means I sometimes have to tell people, no. I sometimes have to tell people that's a want, not a need. I sometimes have to tell people that that's a need, but it's not a need that's at the top of the priority right now, so we'll get to it as soon as we can get to it. Those are not popular things to have to tell principals, members of cabinet sometimes, Chris's team, Laura. Never want to tell Laura no. But we have to do that sometimes. So I have that, and I'm always having to try and keep those plates spinning, knowing that there's going to be someone that's probably not too happy about the decision or the prioritization we have to make. But that's what we have to try and do on a daily basis. Interacting with folks, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. You try to front load, you try to make sure that you tend to some of those things and go overboard. I'm a servant leader, so you may see me sweating and moving furniture or moving stuff with the trailer on the back of the truck, as I was doing yesterday at Court Reporter. And then I had to go to a meeting, so I had to drop the trailer. I couldn't help unload it. I told the staff at Jeff High corridor at Court Reporter, I said, I'm sorry, I can't unload it. I got a crew coming. They should be here. They're loading up the truck. Wet down my hair, combed it, and went to a meeting. So those are the things we just try and do. But it is about relationships, and it is about what truly is our goal, and that's to support our staff and our students, ultimately. So if you have any questions for me, I'll entertain any of those. Chris or I, we can answer some questions. Ready for the start of school. We'll be there bright and early tomorrow morning. I know we have all of the media, WDRB and LKY, WHS, Wave 3. They're all going to be there to begin the day, grabbing live shots of buses rolling, and we'll be doing some interviews there. And then I know they're going to talk to Mr. Walker and go to North Haven and a few other places. We're ready. We're ready. Look forward to get here.
Mr. President, I don't have a question, but I have a comment. Chad, I certainly appreciate you the last couple of weeks with parents contacting me and feeling, like you said, it's very important to them. And if they can't get it settled, when I call you or text you, you are immediate to get back with me. And I don't know how you do it, but I appreciate it. And usually it ends up being a good thing, but every now and then we have to say no, and I can say it too. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Jay, one more, one other point. I said you have 1,800 transportation change request, right?
Yes.
All right, so that's just online, that's not phone calls?
Yeah, that's just the ones that we have an actual paper form that we can populate, and that gets sent out to a number, and we just grab one, we start, going into the system and making those changes. And it could be something as simple as, we moved, and can you tell me what bus we're on now? That's pretty quick and easy. More complicated are, and we get these requests, Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday of this week, I'm gonna go to this location, Wednesday and Friday of this week, and then the following week they're here, it gets pretty complicated. Our policy is that you get 1 a.m. stop to choose and 1 p.m. stop to choose. And we don't do bus passes unless there's an extenuating circumstance. So that's where we have to tell people, you're gonna have to try and work with us where, and most parents are pretty receptive, but not all.
Yeah, I just wanted to point that out because what is our current enrollment?
Yeah, we're a little north of 10,000, 10,500.
Like about my guess, it's
That's
probably about
20%.
18%.
Yeah, that's right.
Of the entire school district. And that's just the kids, or like, that's how many requests we have for change. So I want to just highlight that to some of our parents to, be patient with that because that is a huge undertaking that Dr. Shank and his staff have to do.
Yeah, thank you for saying. And yeah, just be patient. I know, I hear stories of the parents that'll make the same request 5 times, so fill out the form 5 times. So we just, we'll catch them and say, wait a minute, we've already logged that. So that does kind of add to the backlog. The 1,800 is true, 1,800s of changes. Those aren't padded stats. But it's certainly, I appreciate you saying that because it is certainly something we ask the parents to be patient. Again, I tell people on the first day, I'll tell the meeting tomorrow, we never lose students in the afternoons on buses. They might be temporarily misplaced. But we will get on the radio, we'll find out exactly where they're at. We radio the bus that someone saw them get on or the bus they've been assigned to, and we eventually say, okay, they got on the wrong bus. And that's again a situation where we'll say that kid needs a walk to the bus, tomorrow. So those are the things we do. I think normally on a good year, my last bus, my ESL bus that goes to multiple elementary schools in the afternoon, will roll in about 4:55. I think last year we had that bus roll in at 5:30. That's a good day. On the first day of school, we can be about 25 or 30 minutes delayed as we work through. If you've driven, Keith, you mentioned it the last week, if you've driven through Jeffersonville proper, there's a lot of detours right now. Lots of detours. That just adds to, because a detour for a car may not be where we can go with the school bus. So they've already driven the routes. We've been out there. We've lit the fires and kicked the tires on our buses. Our mechanics have done a fantastic job. I can't say enough about my transportation staff and what they've been asked to do because my mechanics were helping move. My mechanics were weeding. Jeff Brooks has stepped up and done a fantastic job, and so has Larry Romero, Karen Hunt, and everyone really. So again, we're ready tomorrow. We'll be out there early and we'll stay late and do whatever it takes.
I thought it was an excellent idea to put a table at all of our open houses. Last night, now they're doing the secondary tonight.
Yes, ma'am.
So there'll be a table just for transportation, or at least a person just for transportation.
That's right, 5 to 7, and we'll have a Google Chromebook there, so a parent, if they haven't done a request and they know the change, they can go right in at that point, or we get their information down, and then we take that back and make sure that we get them to sign.
Great.
I want to ask Chris a real quick question. You've been, in Greater Clark for about a month now, officially starting July 1st, and you've been, part of our task force. And I guess could you speak to, a lot of people don't understand the condition of our buildings and why we're doing this 5-year facility plan. Could you, you're a new set of eyes. You've now been in every one of our buildings. You've seen all of our HVAC equipment. What is your assessment and Perfection's assessment of what you're seeing throughout the district in regards to some of the things that we feel like we need to address?
And that's a great question. And to look into that, we have done 3 different separate audits as far as one from our engineering side, one from our energy side, and then also one from just our technician side of how we look at in each direction from a piece of equipment, mechanically how it's functioning, engineering how can we change it better, and then of course how can we save energy. And I would say that 70% of the buildings are in less than fair to less than fair condition. There's a lot of money being lost on the efficiency of these units. Things that not only with the condition, but the original design is so outdated causing humidity issues. That cannot just be changed by fixing the machine. But you have putting in a whole new system, which is, things that we've addressed through some of these projects that we've presented. And then outside of HVAC, looking at holes in the floor in the shower. We got one today, a hole that went all the way through. Piping issues is something we haven't even addressed. And I could probably say there's 4 schools that would need entire piping reuse. So I mean, those are things, and I don't want to sit here and say that but there's a lot that needs to be done. There's a lot that could be done. There's a lot that can be done. But yes, there's reasons when looking at putting in new schools, way past the idea of, hey, this would be nice. It's from our outside perspective, they're more than needed for sure.
Sorry.
No,
no problem. I think it speaks to, what we are doing, which is in this district with some of our buildings, when you start looking at the fact that some of our buildings are putting in 1,000 to 1,200 work orders a year, because of HVAC issues, electrical outlets or, light switches and things of that nature, door handles, that's not efficient use of our people's time, and our resources, financial and labor resources, and so, I just wanted to ask Chris that question to, try to relay that, in our district, we have some things we need to start taking care of, and those things cost money, and that needs to, and then certainly we'll talk about that more here in the next month, but.
And I did want to make a point as far as, those work orders, those 100 we're getting in a day, they are more than half are half-day jobs, full-day jobs, on the HVAC side. Most of the stuff that we run into is 1 to 2 people taking the whole day to get those done. So it's not going in and just fixing it, moving on to the next one. So there's quite a few of actual full repairs, full actual needing new motors, new compressors, whatever it may be, to actually get this fixed, not just a quick repair. So,
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Chad. Appreciate it very much. Next item up will be a health update. Teresa Stanton. How are you this evening?
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, board, audience. Thank you. Sure. I'm Teresa Stingle. I am the Health Services Supervisor, and I don't often come before the board, so I appreciate you allowing me to do this tonight. And I just wanted to provide a little update on health services, like who we are, what we do, why we do it, and then talk a little bit about COVID and maybe answer any questions that you may have. So this is our staff. Of course, you have myself, and we have 4 registered school nurses, and we have 14 health assistants, all spread out in our buildings throughout the corporation. Our health assistants are unlicensed, and they work with the school nurse. We do have 1 health assistant that is has a CNA certification. I'm going to go through some of the slides really fast, but they are here for your reference because there's a lot of information on them. So this is why we do it. So the practice of nursing in Indiana is regulated by Indiana Code, and then the provision of health care in the school setting is also regulated by Indiana Code. One of the things that we look at is providing services, healthcare services to students so they can participate in school and after school. Part of that comes with delegating nursing tasks, certain nursing tasks to other people, and most of the time that is our health assistants or other staff in the building. That way the students' healthcare needs are being met. With that delegation, there is some accountability involved in that for the school nurses. Sorry, I keep losing my cursor. So because of that accountability, we kind of split our schools into groups that we call clusters. So each school nurse covers a cluster of schools. And so we have 4 school clusters. The very first one is Nurse Cardwell, and that's pretty much the Charlestown, New Washington schools. And then our second cluster is Nurse Garrison, and she's at Jeffersonville High School, also covers quarter to quarter. Cluster 3 is Nurse Brown, and she is stationed at Parkview Middle and has other buildings. And of course, Maple and Bridgepoint were both in her cluster, so now starting this year, she will be covering the New Washington schools. And then we have Nurse Coombs at River Valley. So there's quite a few students that we cover there. So this is looking at last year. And of course, COVID was going on last year. So we didn't have as many health office visits. This is actually about a fourth of what we normally see in our health offices. Oh, it's here. Sorry about that. There we go. So when the students come into the health office, we look to see what their needs are. Is it an illness? Is it first aid? Is it something other than that? And these are just some of the numbers that we saw during the school year. We also have chronic disease visits. Most of the time it's diabetes management. And those are visits pertaining to that. We conduct mandated vision screenings. We also provide prescribed and non-prescribed medications with doctor's orders. A lot of our time is spent on student record keeping and immunizations. This past year, we were about 9% non-compliant in our vaccines, and a lot of that is due to some new requirements that they had for high schoolers that were required to have 2 hepatitis A. We do accept religious and medical exemptions per state guidelines. And this will be a focus this year. We're hoping to have some vaccination clinics to get students caught up this year along with the health department. Our return to class percentage was about 71%. We try to get as many students back to class as we can, of course, to minimize that loss of educational time. Our percentage was lower. In comparison to past years, we're usually about 90%. But of course, you can understand with COVID that we, more times than not, would have to go ahead and send them home, just in case. So, these are just some activities that we do day to day. We do have our own documentation, our medical records for each student that we can document our visits, our medication administration and everything on. Our immunization, auditing, tracking, documentation. Our vision screenings, which, like I said, are mandated by the state for 1st, 3rd, 5th, and 8th grades. Our 1st grade does require what they call a modified technique, which we partner with CIS, and they have a name now I can't quite think of, to bring optometrists in. But of course, last year we had to apply for a waiver for those 1st graders due to COVID. So we hope we're going to be able to bring our optometrists in this year. We do provide dental services for those interested. We screen all the time for communicable diseases. We do our own purchasing and distributing of health office supplies. We did try to have a small health fair for our virtual students last year to try and do their vision screenings along with IUS School of Nursing. They helped us out. And then we help provide CPR first aid for staff. And there is mandated health reporting that we collect information on and report every school every year. We also act as community preceptors for those nursing students at the IUS School of Nursing. And they come in and help us out every year, and that's a nice agreement there. A big part of the time is what the school nurse does. A lot of her time is spent going through each student's information, finding out if they do have healthcare needs, and then developing healthcare plans, implementing them, providing the training that goes along with that, and any training also they have to, evaluate and document on. And that's for a lot of needs such as gastric tube feedings, catheterizations, whatever student needs, we will take care of. And then there was just different things just listed here. There's a whole list of things that I try to do every year. One that I do want to mention is in regards to our AEDs. We have 35 AEDs throughout the corporation. And we also, this past year, we acquired some, what they call Stop the Bleed kits from our health department. And these are kits for life-threatening bleeding that can occur in the building. So those kits are placed in our AEDs. And each AED has a cabinet, and the AED is in the cabinet along with the AED, are these Stop the Bleed kits. And last year in 2021, the House Enrollment Act required us to go ahead and to have these Stop the Bleed kits on hand. We want our buildings to include that information in the emergency plans, and there's supposed to be 5 individuals trained per building, so that'll be something we'll be working on this year. We are also working with the health department on providing Narcan, opioid reversal agent in those cabinets as well in our buildings. This is just kind of the framework we follow, our school nurses do. And these are the evidence-based principles and practice components, just so that we are providing clinically competent and quality care. These are highlights. We did have an issue last year where school nurse and the health assistant reported to a classroom for a student who was unresponsive, later found out to be to an overdose. They were able to initiate rapid response and provide some life-saving measures until EMS arrived. We always, each year, have multiple students and staff that we feel like, we recognize there's a higher level of care needed, and we will call EMS and send those kids on to, or staff on to get better care there. We did provide 134 CPR certifications this past year. We have worked with the Clark County Health Department in the COVID vaccine clinics. And we, of course, follow those COVID-19 protocols. This is just a picture of one of the nurses, Lindsay and myself, giving vaccines. So to kind of go over COVID, this was last year, our COVID cases. And when I say COVID cases, these are the COVID cases that were had mandatory state reporting. So these were cases that involved close contacts in the building. So if we had a student in a building, but they weren't around anybody, there weren't any close contacts named, then those students would not be on the list. Okay, so these were only the ones that had close contacts, meaning there were other people quarantined because of that contact. So of course, last year in July, we started out with one case. See, it kind of crept up and then kind of slowed down, crept up again after fall break, slowed down. January, we had quite a few cases, and then it started creeping back down. So for the whole year, we had 222 cases that were had mandatory state reporting. 167 were students, 55 were staff, resulting in the quarantining of 3,159 students. And some of those students were, in that number, may have been like repeaters, and maybe one student got quarantined several times. This is just some general information, and I did send that out to all staff today, and Word was included on that, just kind of what we follow, how we're following it. This all comes from the State Department of Health, along with our local health department. How we identify close contacts, what we do when someone tests positive, all that information is on here. And we did include those who are fully vaccinated with the information this year, and those who had already had COVID in the last 90 days. And then our quarantine guidelines for students and staff. And then if we have someone who's not a close contact, but maybe they've had symptoms, and how we can get them back to school or back to work, and what requirements they need to meet. So our school nurses just are here to support student success by helping keep students safe in school, ready to learn. And I like this little joke. I wonder if the school nurse is missing me today. I haven't seen her yet. It's already 12:30. Does anyone have any questions? I know I went through that pretty fast. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. Next item up will be our financial update. Laura Huber, our Chief Financial Officer. How are you this evening?
I am doing great, Mr. President. Good evening, board. Oh, agenda. This right here, I'll get to it here. So I have the distinct honor of working with Nurse Stengel, Mr. Gunther, and Dr. Shank. Every day we're in each other's presence, and I just want to say I'm just very honored to have such a team. Not only that, if you're thinking about, and the reason I'm talking about this because this directly relates to what I'm going to show you on this annual financial report, the purpose and intention of it. Not only that, we haven't even heard from what it took our curriculum team and our technology team to get the school year started. This happens every year, but you know that we have a lot of places to juggle through this process. Superintendent has publicly stated that he would challenge any other administrative team in the state of Indiana. I've had the distinct honor to do that throughout the state, work with several, and you will not find any team better, I guarantee you. The reason I can tell you that is not only by the mere fact of the work that they do, it's reflected in what we're doing financially. So the purpose of your annual financial report is a report card for your finance. And inside there, you will see what you have approved for 2020. Remember, that was the one I didn't do, that's before my time, right? 21 is the one I presented where you started to understand different processes through that. But of course, we're just in 21 right now in the state of Indiana, Division of Finance, Indiana Department of Education Division of Finance, requires us to, all schools to publish this report between August 1st and August 15th. So what you will be signing tonight as the secretary, Madam Fitzpatrick, that you're signing that this is the report that I've given to you to be advertised. So there's not an opportunity for approval because you've already approved the budget, you've approved expenditures all the way through. So when you look at your finance reports every month, it's by no mistake that I present to you the targeted funds, such as education, operation, debt is straight up debt, we put that cash in there, and your self-insurance fund. So that runs in line with the annual financial report. So now you should start visualizing how we start slow, so you can start understanding and chewing on where we were at, right? Where we are today and where we're headed. Hence the 5-year plan, which is a big influence on how the district moves as a unit, right? And you can see that direct reflection here. As you scroll through, right here is your finance numbers with the 2020 ending balances. Remember, we talked about how we went from $100,000 ending balance in 19 up to a little over $1 million in each fund for education and operation because you were in deficit financing at the minus. And what work and strategies it has taken to get to that point from then till now. And when I prepped you for the pre-budget, when we did the Steeple presentation at the workshop, at the end I slipped in what you have done in a fiscal period from July 1 to June 30th, and then exactly 12 months, which is when you have your school operations are going. So don't be mistaken, we operate both ways. July 1 to June 30th of any year, that's the fiscal year, but the true reporting calendar year is January 1 to December 31st, and that's what these numbers are. We can continue on through that, right? I'll tell you when it's time. You can see how the programs, how you've received your money, your programs, but the part that I'm going to have you take a look at will reflect salaries. Okay, that's, you know, and we have some fantastic people here that would love to pay us to work for us. However, right there. So this is your scattergram of your teacher salaries, how many people are actually in those categories. So what will be interesting is that since all school districts are required to advertise this same report, is to compare where we are at with other school districts in the surrounding areas. You will be able to see the state of Indiana as well. I mean, you can look all over the state because every single one does that. These are the key components that we look at. We need to be attractable here because we are a great provider of education. So we only want the best of the best. So you know what that means is that we probably will be evaluating this with our teachers when it comes time to negotiate. Continue on. Of course, your outside activities, your extracurriculars, because it's about the whole child. Remember, I always preach about the additional services that we provide to our students, whether it's basketball, coaching, or mentoring, track, chess, whatever you want, band. We believe and we know this is part of the graduation pathway requirements. So all of the things that we do in Greater Clark contribute to the success of the students, which is required by the Indiana Department of Education. Keep going. Okay, here's the other part. You just heard from our nurses, you've heard from Dr. Shank on his staff, and what hours and all the blood, sweat, and tears that they're putting in. Here's where you can look to see what we're paying them for their services. Okay. Again, to be compared with other schools, I encourage you to do that. Rest assured, we've already done that, but I want you to take a look to see kind of where we fall on the spectrum with that. Keeping in mind what we've been told tonight with our three key players that are trying to make sure our kids are safe and are in a great learning environment. Keep going down to where it says student enrollment. So this is enrollment. This is not your ADM count. So if you go down where I can see the bottom number real quick. Okay. So we talk about 10,300 kids. That's the number that we kind of stick with because there's an official count date of those kids. So everything's based off that guidance, different than your enrollment. So your ADM day happens in September and February. You notice this report says enrollment as of October 1st. So there's a constant reporting mechanism all the time of our students throughout the year. And then the next one. Okay, right. So as we have gone through and spoke to the community, I'm going to continue to speak to the community. Right there is your certification of the $1.10 for 2021. Okay. So all the information that's reported for 20 was based off the 0.97 tax rate. We are accomplishing the $1.10 and it will stay at the $1.10. All of the projects, all of the needs in the district, you heard Mr. Gunther express his concerns. All of those things will be addressed with a $1.10. We will lean on resources because I'll be up here in a minute to talk about those resources we'll be leaning in on to try to accomplish those repairs. And the final portion, you can peruse that. We're required to report anybody who we've paid over $2,500. You are a large district. It should not shock you that we should have a lot of those. We have 22 buildings we have to take care of. So that's what that report is. Finally, tonight you will also be signing every 6 months. We're required by the Indiana Department of Education Division of Finance to submit our official financial statements. Those are called Form 9s. They are submitted every 9 months. The community can look that up under the Indiana Department of Education, Form 9, and you can see what we do every 6 months. You can see it from January to December. You can see it from July to June. July 1 of one year, June 30th of the next year. Always out there, always required. And prior to this, getting this all prepared while this is going on, of course, I have to thank my business office and the HR department because there's no way that I can get this budget presented to you on August 10th, which is earlier than what we've had, because we have a lot of work to do. We have to accomplish a lot. So I have to thank them as well because they're the ones that prepare all of this. All of these things they're handling. They're the ones that's putting the invoices in. So all of this is orchestrated every day by our offices. So that's a major task as you scroll through here. And finally, at the August meeting, we will be back on with our financial reports. So we will be showing you those targeted reports, where those targeted funds, where those cash balances lie in June. That's the numbers I start with when I build that budget because it's an 18-month period. I have to report to them where we're at June 30th to December 31st. And then I have to project January 1 to December 31st of 22. We are already ready to be prepared for that $1.10 tax rate to handle the needs that are going to be coming in year one of our facility plan, in addition to making sure that our bills are paid within the year when we have those concerns, in addition to hitting some of our benchmark goals of not using the TAW. So it will be forthcoming on August 10th. Some good information and how we proceed with 22 and how I formulated my assumptions based on advice from the state of Indiana to, imagine this, aggressively attack your 22 budget. Don't be afraid. Well, I don't think it's on that, but that's how we're going to hit it aggressively, but intellectually that fits into what our needs are. So that's coming on August 10th, and I'm sorry that you'll have to listen to me for a while on that, because this will be a good time to understand where you work, how that all operates today. Are there any questions? No? Fantastic.
I have to sign this.
You have to sign that, ma'am.
I'm the only one that has to sign this.
You don't have to
I
sign
think
that.
that's a trap.
Madam Secretary, who says that on the back? Madam Secretary, yes. Secretary of the board, I think that's you.
Okay.
Don't be afraid.
All right. Thank you, Laura, for that riveting presentation. Appreciate that. Next item up would be the approval of the consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
I move that we approve the consent agenda as submitted.
Thank you, Ms. Hutchinson. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Kevin Paul. Any questions, comments, or concerns about that? It'll be-
Chad, thanks for the update on the budget thing. I appreciate that.
Yeah, that was good. All right, if there's no other comments, all those in favor of the consent agenda as it's presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, let's move on down. Next, Fair Katrine, would you do gifts to buildings for us, please?
Yes, sir. This month, we had New Washington, Kroger. If you use a Kroger card, sign up for part of that money to go to your school. Parkview Middle School, Clark County Sheriff's Office gave $1,000 for camp. Parkview, that sounds fun. And Pleasant Ridge Elementary, also a community foundation grant for $934.44 for library books. I love books. Total this month, $2,476.24. That would be accepting gifts to building customers.
I will second that. Any questions or comments? All right, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, we'll move on to action items. The first item for action would be the resolution in support of military families. April?
Thank you, Gordon. The Department of Education awards a Purple Star School designation to honor schools that have displayed a significant commitment to service members, veterans, and students and families connected to our nation's military. Colonel Benning at Jeffersonville High School is working on this designation and is the volunteer point of contact for military families and has completed all the required training for this designation. The Air Force JROTC website has a new link that identifies resources for military families. Annual military programs recognizing veterans include the JROTC Veterans Day March and the Veterans Day Memorial Day dedications at the National Cemetery. Colonel Benning is also working on a public military display to recognize Jeffersonville High School graduates who were on active duty or have previously served. The Indiana Department of Education will honor the second cohort of schools earning this designation in the fall of 2021. This designation application requires that the Board of School Trustees approve a resolution in support of military families. This Purple Star School designation, when awarded, will serve a 3-year time period. And I do want to point out that Colonel Benning would have loved to have been here, and we know that likes to recognize his program. So I do want to point out that the reason why he's not here today is he's just returning this afternoon from his program's academic gold team, where they competed in Washington, D.C. There were approximately 1,500 teams competing, and our Jeffersonville High School Air Force JROTC finished third in the national academic goal. So we're recommending approval of this resolution in support of military families so Colonel Fitting can complete the application for this Purple Star school designation.
Thank you. Board, do I have a motion of approval for the resolution in support of military families?
Mr. President, I recommend the approval of resolution in support of military families.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman. Thank you, Ms. Perkins. Any questions or comments? Other than the fact that they work really, really hard. It's just a tremendous program, and this is phenomenal. So that's all. Anybody have anything else to say? But all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Next up would be the ESSER 3 HVAC project agreement with Perfections. Ms. Huber, back again. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. So it's a long process. Once we have received notice on the ESSER 3, excuse me, Dr. Hartledge worked really hard on fulfilling the obligations that are outlined as required. You know, when you deal with the federal government, that's the state of Indiana's a pass-through. She is pretty well #1 in the state in trying to get them to understand how school works every time at the DOE. Just kind of pointing that out that our doctor does that. But anyhow, so Perfection did come in. They were very educated in the ESSER 3 money and what that could be utilized for. They've worked with Dr. Hartledge on what the regulations are. So enclosed tonight is an agreement that we have worked with Perfection to do an $8 million district-wide as far as we can go, and I'll identify those schools in a second, for the necessary HVAC repairs that do qualify for air purification for the optimal learning environment. Dr. Hartledge did present that through her grant and did get approved to commit this money for that. The extensive studies that Mr. Gunther has expressed to you with their technicians, their green teams, all of the people that are involved have evaluated this. Everything is important, everything is an emergency, but we prioritize to maximize this money. So you will notice that in the agreement, all of the things that we're going to accomplish for the following schools: North Haven Elementary, New Washington Elementary, Utica Elementary, Parkview Middle School, Parkwood Elementary, and we are going to set the stage for River Valley, because the next round in year 1, there is a commitment to more HVAC, and we will be putting air conditioning inside that gymnasium, which is what the task force has said, that they want air conditioning in these gymnasiums. So as we go through this process, the significance of this contract and the format that we're doing it in this time, the reason why it may sound a little confusing in my memo, we've decided to go in this format this time, right? But because they are an in-house provider and self-performing, it's like us doing that. There is no distinction with this process. However, they are required to get the bids, the numbers, all the documentation that we provided to Dr. Hartledge and my office for the Indiana State Board of Accounts, because they have been very forthcoming that they're going to audit this hard. And so they know the documentation that they have to look at to accomplish all of this work within the district. We estimate that right out of the gate, any work that's going to be done by Perfection inside as a partner, because it's bigger than just a vendor, this is the benefit of going down this route, is immediate 30% savings. So you can see that we can get more done. We can set the stage for getting to River Valley. Do you understand why we are at this point? It's very vital to a school district, and the concept of how this process works is not only just cost savings with what they're doing, more efficient response times, it is bigger than that. It's the lifelong time frame of accounts you'll need to add cost savings to schools. So with that being said, Mr. President, I am recommending that the board approve the contract for the ESSER 3 HVAC projects.
Thank you very much. Board, do I have a motion for the ESSER 3 HVAC agreement with Perfection?
I move that we approve the ESSER Phase 3.
Thank you, Ms. Hutchinson. Second, please.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Perkins. Any questions or comments regarding this? Other than we're break?
Thank you, Dr. Harlow.
Exactly. All right, board, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, we'll move right along. Thank you. Next item up is District 1 School Board Member Replacement. That'll be me on July 13th, 2021. Bill Hawkins, a former Greater Clark County School Board member, submitted his resignation from the school board effective July 13th, 2021. Pursuant to Indiana Law 2023-4-20C, when a school board member resigns, the remaining board members, by a majority vote, within 30 days will fill the vacancy by appointing a person to serve for the balance of that term. The person appointed must meet the same qualifications for the vacancy as if running for the vacant board seat, including residing in the same district where the vacancy exists. There were 3 candidates that were considered for the vacancy, and 3 candidates were talked to and communicated with. Board, I am bringing the recommendation of Brian Jones to fill the vacancy of District 1. Could I get a motion?
Mr. President, I would move that we accept the appointment of Mr. Jones for the remainder of the vacant school board seat.
Thank you, Ms. Perkins. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Fitzpatrick. Any questions or comments? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we'll move right along. Next item we have would be, oh, yep, we got the public comments here. Caitlin Blessing. Caitlin, if you just state your name, where you live.
Okay, Caitlin Blessett, 320 Mary Street, Jeffersonville, Indiana, 47130.
Yes, ma'am, and you have 3 minutes. I know it's a hurry. Thank you.
Okay, I am a mom of 2 K-12 boys, and I'm a master's prepared nurse. And I just want to start out by saying that the survival rate for children with COVID-19 is 99.998% per the CDC. There has never been an emergency for children. But media fear-mongering funded by Big Pharma this past 15 months somehow convinced people that a coronavirus, no more deadly than the seasonal flu, should be treated like Ebola. I get that fear reduces the brain's capacity to connect logical dots, but now the narrative has played out for a while, and this is very obviously a vaccine agenda. I have never seen anything more obvious. At this point, there is so much data and research out there showing how ineffective and dangerous masks are to children. Earlier, I emailed each of you a few studies. I emailed you the U of L study that I sent on masks and their danger to children. A recent German study showed carbon dioxide levels reaching unacceptable levels within 3 minutes of wearing a mask. You can also buy a standard oxygen reader. You can stick it up under your mask, and it will reduce to dangerous oxygen levels within 5 seconds, below OSHA standards. You have this information now, so nobody gets to claim ignorance beyond this point. We don't even know the long-term effects on brain development after depriving a child of basic oxygen all day for over a year. Not to mention how dirty and contaminated masks get. This is common sense. So my problem is not your current policy, because you don't have a mandated current policy, and we appreciate that. My current problem is that you still seem to be choosing federal dollars over the safety and health of our children on school buses. And you seem to be saying that these mandates could return at any time based on whatever the CDC and the Department of Health comes up with next. I'm here to let you know there will be no more compromises for our children's well-being. Yes. For over a year now, we've been hearing we're just following the CDC or the governor or the health department, but these people are not weighing risk versus benefits. Is the school board aware that the CDC is not a division of U.S. government? They are a private for-profit corporation funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation Pfizer, AstraZeneca, Johnson & Johnson, among others, for purposes of vaccine development. That's the CDC's primary agenda. They're funded by vaccine manufacturers. That's their moneymaker. Our Department of Health gets a lot of money from the CDC. The safety nets that we thought were in place to protect our children are not safety nets at all. You are a separate safety net. You live and work in this community, and you were elected to represent parents and children in this community. Schools should create school policies based on what the parents want, not unelected government bureaucrats with significant conflicts of interest. If you fail as a safety net, we the parents are the final safety net, and we are not going to fail to protect our children. We are blessed in the state of Indiana to have some of the best homeschooling laws. It is really easy to homeschool in the state of Indiana. You need to get rid of mask policies in all settings. Our kids are not wearing them anymore. If parents start pulling kids from schools, you will not be getting federal dollars anyway. We've already set up homeschooling pods, and I think that you'll find a lot of people will pull out if these mandates return.
Thank you. We appreciate your input. Okay. We have any other comments? Mary Brewer. Thank you. Just go ahead and state your name. I know I just yelled it, but if you state your name and where you live, again, it'll be through that. Thank you.
My name is Mary Brewer, 314 Housing, Charlestown. I am very concerned with what I'm seeing pushed across America in all of the schools. It's downright shocking for a country founded on liberty, freedom, and equality. Critical race theory, CRT, is divisive, not unifying. Regressive, not progressive. It all stems from Marxist ideology, which is communism, not Americanism. Our Attorney General, Todd Rokita, said these ideologies are being consistently backdoored into Indiana classrooms as DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, and SEL, social emotional learning, contrary to Indiana state and federal law. It is still the same racist indoctrination as CRT under a different name. As Americans, we will not tolerate the kind of un-American, racist indoctrination to our most precious assets, our children and our future. CRT, SEL, and DEI go against every shred of American principle, and those of us with a slight understanding of history recognize it's pushing an ideology this country has been fighting since our founding. We are all created equally, and we should be treated equally. This was declared in 1776 as a foundational principle upon which our country was established. We are not born oppressed. We are not born oppressors. Any suggestion of this is very destructive to the children and all. We live in a country that was found on the belief of self-governance, that a government allowed to grow too large will eventually become so powerful, individual rights will be trampled upon. We are seeing this now more than ever. The public school system is the educational arm of the government. Many of us have tolerated far more from our government than we should. The education provided to our children that we pay for with taxes should and must accurately reflect the values of the parents. To ensure this, the parents should take responsibility, as many of us are doing all across America. According to Indiana Code 5-14-3-1, all parents have a right to see what curriculum is being taught to the children. I encourage each parent to look this information up. That's 5-14-3-1. In closing, I am here to say I am opposed to critical race theory in all forms. As Edmund Burke said, evil prevails when good men do nothing. It is each of your duties to take courage and uphold the oath you took to prevent this racist indoctrination in our schools.
Thank you, Ms. Brewer. Okay. All right. Thank you all for your comments. Both of you appreciate it. Next would be board comments.
excited about school starting tomorrow. I know not all the children are, but I know that all the teachers are, and we did a great job last year. I know we'll do even better this year. And I just want to thank everybody that made that happen, the teachers, the parents, the admin team, all of our support staff. It's going to be awesome.
Thank you, Justin. Mr. Paul?
Just looking for a fabulous school year.
Yep. Mr. Freeman?
Yeah, looking forward to a good school year. I can't wait for tomorrow. I don't know, like a lot of parents, like we've had at least one child at home, homeschooling virtually. And now she's going to be going back to school to actually be with her friends. Both of our kids are actually going to be out of the house, back into a more. I would say it's a better learning environment because I am not as qualified to teach them as their teachers are in our schools. So for that, I'm grateful. I'm glad they get to go back to school and be with their friends, but also be in a better learning environment. So.
Thank you for the confession. That would be great. Ms. Fitzpatrick?
No, just really looking forward to starting in a different way this year than we did last year. A more positive way and more kids back in the buildings. I think if you look at what happened, across the river in Jefferson County Public Schools, that the kids didn't make it to school most of the year. And I mean, everybody has to make decisions, but I think we ended up with the right decision and hopefully just keep on moving forward.
It is.
I ditto everybody else about the start of school tomorrow, and we're going to have tonight a lot of youngsters and adults too with big knots in their stomachs for a few reasons. One, am I going to wear alarms, and am I going to look okay? Is my hair going to work? Well, I like my teacher. Can I find my locker? Can I open my locker? So all of those things, and we're ready for all of those questions. Our teachers are professionals, and they love kids, or they wouldn't be in this profession, and they're there to help. And I wish that we have a much better, well, we had a good year last year, but we're going to have a stellar year this year.
Thank you, Ms. Perkins. The same thing I want to say before I have another thing to say. I think we did, before we were even back at school, on the teacher calendar, I drove by some schools in the day, and there were a lot of cars out. There were a lot of teachers that were there getting ready, and it wasn't part of their contract. And this has been several weeks out, so I just know the work ethic there is phenomenal. And I know they went through a lot last year. Hoping to get some things straightened out to reward them and continue to reward them because we have some great teachers and we need to keep them. And that just only goes with equity. So the next thing I'd like to talk about is the 20th of July. We completed Mr. Loeffner's annual performance evaluation. His evaluation was based on the evaluation tool rubric developed by the Indiana School Board Association and the Indiana Association of Public School Superintendents. The tool was designed for consistency in the evaluation process across the state. Mr. Loeffner, I've been happy to say, after hours of communicating and doing things, and we were very decisive as a board, received a highly effective performance rating. And, given all that went on last year, to be able to get that, I think was just phenomenal. So, congratulations to you on that. And through the board evaluation process, Mr. Loeffner did receive that highly effective performance rating. But based on the terms of Mr. Loeffner's contract, the receipt of a highly effective performance rating entitles him to an additional 1 year on his contract without any more board action. So his contract will be extended through 2024, I believe. So congratulations and thank you very much for leading our school corporation under the hill and over to the river. Appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate your support. It's been a unique year, but I enjoy doing this work and enjoy working with this board. So really appreciate it.
Great.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I am finished. I have nothing else to say. I believe I'll bring it to you. If you
Okay.
have something else.
Yeah, I want to address the comments on the critical race theory. I want to post something on the screen up here that we received from the Indiana Department of Education. Secretary of Education, Dr. Katie Jenner, sent out to all superintendents, principals throughout the state. I know it's very difficult for you to read out there, but I want to read a couple of parts of it. And I will tell you that Greater Clark follows what's in this memo very strictly. And I'll just read a couple of different pieces of it. In Indiana, K-12 schools are required to teach the Indiana academic standards and the Indiana employability skills standards. Neither set of standards include critical race theory. Critical race theory is not designed for elementary, middle, or high school students. Additionally, the state of Indiana will not support, condone, or fund anything that alienates, discriminates, or negatively divides students based on race or background. I will tell you that Greater Clark follows that paragraph very closely. Also, to go on with the memo, and this is something we fully support, that comes from the DOE and Dr. Jenner and the state. As Indiana's educators work to help our students recover from the impact of COVID-19, we're intensely focused on Indiana academic standards that lead to college and career readiness. Indiana is dedicated, as is Greater Clark, to closing persistent learning and educational attainment gaps for our most at-risk students, including racially and ethnically diverse students, low-income students, students with special needs, and English learners. The Indiana Department of Education and Hoosier educators must be laser focused on helping all students working together, not divided, to achieve their full potential. And Greater Clark lives by this, I can tell you. I know there's concerns out there, but we follow what's in this memo. So just wanted to share that with you in the audience and also in the public. As far as the start of school, I'm excited for the start of school. The buzz and the activity, the first day of school is always exciting. I will caution everyone that this is my 27th year in education. So that's 27 years as far as being employed by the school, starting school. There's many more before that as a student. I've yet to experience a perfect start to the school year.
But that better change this.
Maybe it'll happen tomorrow.
Dr. Shane. Yeah, he's not even paying attention.
I've yet to experience that.
I am working, honestly.
So we're hoping that perfect start comes tomorrow, but we know that there will be some things we have to work through and take care of. So, but we're excited. We'll be out and about. The whole cabinet team will be all over the county, basically, at different schools. I plan on visiting at least 5 or 6 schools tomorrow. So we're looking forward to it, and wish our teachers and students luck for the start of the school year.
All right, Ms. Markowski, would you have anything that you'd like to address? All right. Well, we'll move on to the last item, move for adjournment.
Mr. President, I move we adjourn.
Thank you, Ms. Perkins. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? We're done.